is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
I mean, I guess I could start by apologizing. I'll say I'm sorry if you want. I'll say I'm sorry, Boston, if that's what you need. I'm not going to say that the prophet has insulted your children. No, you've dealt with that in other media quarters this today. But instead, what I might offend is your superstitions. You see, the prophet's going to lock it in today. I am taking the Patriots in the Super Bowl over the Philadelphia Eagles. Thus, I fear I have imperiled the hopes of the New England Patriots. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. I have somewhat of a miserable record that I'm willing to acknowledge this playoffs. Although I should say I'm 4-6. Now, clearly I'm busted out of the playoffs. I took the New Orleans Saints to win the Super Bowl, and I get it. You sort of have to go perfect in the playoffs, but I am 4-6. It's not like I'm 1-9. I'm not 2-8. I'm 4-6. I'm 400. That's better than Bill Belichick's first year as head coach of the New England Patriots. Still not great. I'm just saying. We all have to start somewhere. Belichick was 5-11. I think that's a winning percentage of roughly 31%. So I'm outpacing the greatest coach of all time when it comes to my playoff picks. I have a feeling it's going to go similarly. I will, in the end, establish myself as the greatest of all time. Just give me a little bit of time. But for now, it can feel like a little bit of the kiss of death to say, I think the New England Patriots are going to win the Super Bowl. But I do. You give me the greatest football player of all time in Tom Brady. You give me the greatest coach of all time in Bill Belichick. And you give me 2 weeks, I feel like you would be a moron to bet against the New England Patriots. That would be against all odds. You're telling me Bill Belichick's going to hole up in a room for 2 weeks and figure out how it is he can defeat the 2013 version of Nick Foles? I mean, that's the trick that was played upon the Minnesota Vikings. That's the great magic that Doug Peterson pulled off. We heard in the weeks leading up to the NFC Championship game that the Philadelphia Eagles were reviewing 2013 film. Amazing film, by the way. Just stellar, award-winning, Oscar-level performances by Nick Foles in 2013. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was something like 27 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. It was stellar. It was Pro Bowl. It was starting quarterback on multiple franchises building block. That's what Nick Foles' 2013 was. But as we heard the news going into the NFC Championship game, that's what the Philadelphia Eagles were going to rely upon when it came to playing the Minnesota Vikings. Forgive me if I thought that sounded, risky. Forgive me if I thought that sounded desperate. Because the 2017-18 version of Nick Foles certainly had not been something to give Philadelphia Eagle fans hope. Even the divisional round performance against the Atlanta Falcons was not one to give Philadelphia Eagle fans hope. No, it was there to give you fear. But fear not. Doug Peterson's got the 2013 film game tapes. He dusted them off. They were under Chip Kelly in a box marked fired. That's what Chip Kelly left the Philadelphia Eagles. He apparently left the Philadelphia Eagles the key to beating the Minnesota Vikings, but I don't think that same trick, that same key, unlocks the Philadelphia Eagles against the New England Patriots. I think if you give Bill Belichick 2 weeks to review not just 2017 and 2018 Nick Foles, but also to go back into those files and review a little tape on 2013 Nick Foles, it's simply too much. Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, in 2 weeks, too much. Give me the Patriots. I hope I haven't given you the kiss of death, New England. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive's Home Insurance. Get your quote at Progressive.com today. You can join me on the show, 888-729-3776, 888-SAY-ESPN, or on Twitter at Will Cain. If you're looking for reasons to worry about the New England Patriots, if you're looking for reasons to say, why should we bet against the greatest coach of all time? Why should we bet against the greatest football player of all time? You might be able to find that kind of reason in the fact that they are losing both their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator in the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl. If there's such a thing as a distraction in New England, and by the way, Teddy Bruschi was in our studio, who told us something exactly like that. We were asking about Seth Wickersham's investigative report and whether or not there are fractures in the foundation of New England, whether or not there are problems. And he said, I'm not worried about that stuff. But I'll tell you what I would worry about. I would worry about all these coordinators moving on. Matt Patricia is scheduled to become the head coach of the Detroit Lions. And as of today, Josh McDaniels will be the new head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. As soon as this Super Bowl is over, that move will be made official. Tom Brady says it's time. It's time for Josh McDaniels to get his second chance.
Josh has been such a great mentor for me, one of my great friends. We'll see how all that plays out after the year, but he deserves whatever opportunity he would ever get. He's an incredible coach, and I've been lucky to be with him for as long as I have, and any place that has him is lucky to have him.
So here's the question, or rather, many think this is the answer to questions we've been asking for quite some time. Does Josh McDaniels' hiring by the Indianapolis Colts give you answers on two things? Number one, what is Andrew Luck's future? And number two, what is Bill Belichick's future? Because there are many who believe this is the indicator. This is the signal about these two items that we have fretted over, talked about, written about, and wondered for quite some time. First, Andrew Luck. What does this tell us about Andrew Luck's health? My man hasn't played football in over a year. It's been well over 12 months since Andrew Luck has been on the football field, and reports about his shoulder keep getting worse and more mysterious. What does he have? When will he be back? How far will it set back his career? Would Josh McDaniels have taken this job if he had doubts about Andrew Luck's shoulder? Would he have hitched his career? Because after this, his second shot, that's got to also be known as his last shot as head coach of the NFL. Would he hitch that to a balky shoulder and Andrew Luck? Mike Weiss, ESPN's Colts reporter, said this is all he wants to know. All he wants to know from Josh McDaniels.
Josh McDaniels struggled in his first go-around with the Denver Broncos. Didn't have any quarterback. I don't think Josh McDaniels will come here if he thought there was a chance that Andrew Luck was going to continue to miss significant time. No offense to Jacoby Brissett, who McDaniels worked with his rookie year in New England, but if you're a head coaching candidate, the first question you're going to ask Jim Irsay and general manager Chris Ballard is, where is Andrew Luck in the health process? In fact, I'll tell you this, after Jim Irsay, Chris Ballard, and Josh McDaniels make those opening comments during the press conference when McDaniels was officially hired, I'm not going to ask McDaniels about, the whole thought of coming back here. The first question I'm asking him is Andrew Luck going to be healthy? That's the only thing anybody cares about, is where the health of Andrew Luck is with that right shoulder.
Now, I'm not so sure this is the ringing endorsement that so many believe about Andrew Luck's shoulder. Cerruti, you think this is absolutely nail in the coffin, definitive evidence that Andrew Luck's going to be okay, that Josh McDaniels wouldn't take this job if that weren't the case?
Well, it's his last shot probably at being a head coach, and he's the hottest commodity on the market. Why would he take this job if it wasn't a slam dunk? Why would he take a risky job? There would have to be assurances that Andrew Luck's shoulder was okay. I'd have to know. And I know they haven't reported anything, and we don't know anything about it, but I imagine behind the scenes they're like, hey, listen, he's okay. He's going to be fine for the next season.
Okay, well, here is my response to that. Number one, I don't think the Colts have known. I don't know that they know right now how good or bad Andrew Luck's shoulder is. They seem to have been surprised at every step, wondering and thinking that Andrew Luck was going to come back sooner than it ended up being. I'm not sure anyone knows exactly what the status of Andrew Luck's shoulder is. So I don't know how Josh McDaniels can make a definitive decision about his future, knowing for sure what Andrew Luck's shoulder is. What's up, Nuno?
What about the fact that they have the third pick? Maybe there's one of those guys in the draft that he really likes.
Well, here's what I would say. This brings me to point number two. Josh McDaniels coached the guy that started for 16 games this year. It wasn't 16 games, but it was something like 12 games for Indianapolis this year. He coached Jacoby Brissett in New England. Jacoby Brissett is the insurance policy. So what I think Josh McDaniels gets to do here is he gets to buy the Andrew Luck lotto ticket, which means he's got a top 10 quarterback, possibly, you could say when healthy, a top 5 quarterback. He gets that lotto ticket, Cerruti, and that's better, by the way, than all the other options he had on the market. That's better than Marcus Mariota in Tennessee. That's better than whatever was going to be available in Arizona. That's better than 56-year-old Eli Manning. That's better than all of his other options to build his career around a quarterback. The Andrew Luck lotto ticket.
He could have just waited. He didn't have to take a job this year, right? Unless, and that brings us to Bill Belichick and what his future is. But what I'm here to tell you is, at least on the Andrew Luck question, I think it should provide hope that he's okay, that Josh McDaniels chose to take this job, but it sure didn't provide definitive evidence in my mind because he still has the Jacoby Brissett insurance policy. Straight ahead, let's explore that Bill Belichick angle. What does not just McDaniels leaving, but Patricia leaving as well? What does everyone leaving New England tell us about Belichick's
future plans. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Mike Golick here. You know, ADT, the +1 security company, can now help keep you safe at home and when you're on the go. Get started with the ADT Starter Kit professionally installed for only $49. Plus, you'll get ADT Go, the new family mobile safety app and service with 24/7 emergency response for free with any ADT security system. Go to ADT.com/podcast to learn more today.
Requires 36-month monitoring contract, QSP and Easy Pay. Activation and early termination fees may apply. Certain markets excluded. Licenses available at ADT.com. Additional charge for ADT Go premium services after March 31st, 2018.
Question I keep revisiting over and over is this. Would Bill Belichick leave the Patriots in good shape? Would it be a priority for Bill Belichick to make sure whenever he's gone from New England that the dynasty lives on, that he leaves it in good hands? I can't come to an answer that I love. I keep asking myself that question, and I can't come to an answer that gives me a, yeah, he'd do that. Bill Belichick would make sure that the legacy lives on in somebody else's hands. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. It's time for Straight Talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. We just talked about what does Josh McDaniels hiring as the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts tell you? Because there's two great questions out there that people have been debating for, I don't know, at least 6 months. What is Andrew Luck's health? Is his shoulder okay? And for some, the fact that Josh McDaniels would take the job as head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, well, that's definitive proof that Andrew Luck must be okay. My producer, Steven Cerruti, believes that McDaniels, a man what, at the top of his game, seemingly could have any job in the NFL he wanted, wouldn't take this one if he didn't get Andrew Luck along with it.
Yeah, I just don't. He could stay in New England for another year and wait for another opportunity. He could have gone to the Texans, I would imagine, with a more stable quarterback situation. I don't understand why he would have went to Indianapolis if that Andrew Luck shoulder injury wasn't 100% okay.
Well, I don't know if he could have gone to the Texans. That job wasn't open.
I'm sorry, Titans.
Titans, right. Yes, I mean, he could have chosen to coach Marcus Mariota for the next 5 to 10 years. He could have chosen to coach Mitch Trubisky, possibly, in Chicago, Eli Manning in New York, and he did choose Andrew Luck. Count me as skeptical. Count me as unconvinced that this is a ringing endorsement of Andrew Luck's health. Because I think what McDaniels bought was the lotto ticket of a top 10 quarterback in Luck with the insurance policy of a quarterback he knows in Jacoby Brissett. Now you can scoff and you go, oh, are you kidding me that you stake your second chance on Jacoby Brissett? I'm just telling you, the guys in New England know Brissett better than anybody else. And Louis Riddick, for example, a guy I respect, has sat in here several times and said, I mean, who's the real deal? Brissett's the real deal. So you get a guy like that as your insurance policy and $85 million in cap space, I'm not sure that tells us everything we need to know about Andrew Luck.
How about this? Maybe he didn't want to stay in New England either because Belichick was obviously trying to set up the plan for the future with Garoppolo. And now that Garoppolo's gone, that's not as good of a job in the long term as it was at the beginning of this year, correct?
And for who? For anyone. And that brings me to Belichick, because the other thing that the Josh McDaniels hiring in Indianapolis seems to shed light on is, what is Bill Belichick's future? Now, in a year when both of his coordinators are going to leave to be head coaches elsewhere, Josh McDaniels in Indianapolis and Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator, going to be the head coach of the Detroit Lions. In a year when, as you point out, Cerruti, Seth Wickersham has reported the trading of Jimmy Garoppolo was something that divided that organization, divided Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft and Tom Brady. It makes you wonder, what is the long-term future of New England? And when I say long-term future, I mean 2 weeks. I mean beyond the Super Bowl. Because I'm not 100% convinced that Bill Belichick cares about the legacy of the New England Patriots beyond the tenure of Bill Belichick. So here's the scenario I'm painting for you. Could it be that he helps Matt Patricia move on to Detroit? Could it be that he helps Josh McDaniels move on to Indianapolis, leaving his organization with no heir apparent, a vacancy at the top of the leadership chain, and still walk away? Could he walk away without any form of infrastructure, at least at the top, in the New England Patriots? And I keep coming back to, yeah, I think Bill Belichick would do that. And I don't know if it's one press conference in New York, you know, the one-day tenure he had as the New York Jets, it makes me think, that man, he's not too concerned about what comes after him. That man, he's not too concerned about feelings. In fact, it's his feelings that are driving things. And if Wickersham is correct, ESPN.com investigative reporter Seth Wickersham, if he's correct, it's Bill Belichick's feelings that could be driving this kind of thing.
Well, and that changed at the beginning of this year, right? Because he was trying to set up the success of the future of the Patriots with Garoppolo. And because that was taken away from him, you think that he's like gone 180 and is like, all right, now I'm just going to burn scorched earth here?
Or it could just simply be logical, like you said. There is no long-term vision here. They're tying themselves, and this isn't me attempting to be in Belichick's mind, they're tying themselves to a 40-year-old quarterback. I personally believe Tom Brady's going to be a top-level quarterback for years to come. Me, Will Cain, I believe that. I don't know if Bill Belichick does, because as we know, he was ready to keep Garoppolo. Look at this, though. These are the coordinators that have moved on from Bill Belichick. Charlie Wise, Romeo Crennel, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. Eric Mangini, defensive coordinator. Josh McDaniels the first time. Dean Pease didn't go on to become a head coach. Bill O'Brien, offensive coordinator. Josh McDaniels now a second time. And Matt Patricia. If there's any single testament to Bill Belichick's greatness, it hasn't mattered. You know, you watch the Dallas Cowboys when Jimmy Johnson was the head coach, and one of the things that tore that down was offensive and defensive coordinators, beyond free agency, but offensive defensive coordinators going on to become head coaches. Dave Wannstedt leaving, Butch Davis leaving, on and on. It's hard to maintain leadership at the top. It hasn't mattered in New England other than Bill Belichick staying. So what is it, though, when Bill Belichick's gone? What is the infrastructure? What is the culture that lives on? Nothing.
And in the past, Belichick had been reluctant to kind of help his guys find new jobs. This is a totally new Belichick thing, to help Patricia and help McDaniels get new jobs. That's something that he never used to do in the past.
Would he send these guys off into their careers? Would he send these guys off to be head coaches if he intended to leave? The obvious answer is no. That's a clear indication he's staying and he's going to be around. I'm just not sure that fits with who Bill Belichick has been throughout his career. That's Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Straight ahead, Damien Woody's coming in. Also, you've got to hear this audio. So Tom Brady was on local radio in Boston today, WEEI, and he got really upset with one of the hosts over what they said about one of his children. You got to hear this. Did Tom go too far? We know the host did. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
In a time when the NFL seeks parity on Dynasty Rules.
It's probably the best dynasty that you've seen.
The list of postseason records that can be found in New England is long.
Brady has, to quote the hit musical Hamilton, rewrote the game.
But the biggest of them isn't theirs. But it's within reach. They're one Super Bowl title shy of tying for the most all time. The Patriots and Eagles. The story continues.
Yeah, what's up? It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. If you're just listening to the Sports Center update from Christine Lisa, you heard that the Cleveland Indians are moving on from Chief Wahoo as a logo and icon for that franchise, for that baseball franchise. I want to ask this one question, because here's the thing when it comes to Chief Wahoo, or for that matter the name Indians, or for that matter the name Atlanta Braves or Kansas City Chiefs or Washington Redskins. And here's the question. What is offensive? What defines whether or not something is offensive? I'll read you this quote. This is from an article from the New York Times about Chief Wahoo being retired by the Cleveland Indians. And this is from Philip Yenyo. I hope I'm saying that right. He's executive director of the American Indian Movement of Ohio. He says, it's a good start getting rid of Chief Wahoo, but the name has to go too. The nickname definitely has to go. It's not just the logo. So what this executive director of the American Indian Movement of Ohio is saying is the term Indians, Cleveland Indians, is also offensive and must go. By the way, Mr. Yenyo also said Braves is one that has to go. Atlanta Braves as well. So one would obviously ask, well, what about Kansas City Chiefs? And the article references the tomahawk chop used by the Atlanta Braves. That's also used by the Chiefs. It's also used by Florida State. These are all things, at least according to some, that are offensive. And so I think the simple question is, how do we define offensive? Who defines offensive? And I've had this debate on several occasions. I even had it on The View, to be quite honest. There was a time in my career, I used to joke around about this with Ryan Russillo, that I did a little sit-in on The View. I think it was 4 times in total. Hung out with Whoopi, Jenny.
Yeah, you guys are friends now, huh?
Oh, Whoopi?
You and Whoopi hung out?
Whoopi and I hung out. I did. I made the trip out to Whoopi's house once or twice. And honestly, that's after having had a debate about the Washington Redskins. And I asked the question, like, how do we define when something's offensive? And for so many, the answer is, well, if it offends anyone, one is enough. And to me, that is absolutely an absurd principle. It is not one that you can go around accommodating, because you can find somebody offended by anything. So if we can at least agree that it's not the one person standard, which I think most of us can agree upon, it's not the one person standard in whether or not you've offended them and therefore you must accommodate that point of view, then you ask the question, well, how much? Because the Washington Post, for example, has done studies on this when it comes to the Washington Redskins. How much of the American Indian population is offended by the term Washington Redskins? And if memory serves me, because I don't have it right up here in front of me, but it was overwhelmingly, the majority did not find the term Redskins, as used by the Washington Redskins, offensive. So what is it? Is it 20%? 30%? 51%? What percentage of people, for that matter, let's just limit it to American Indians. What percentage of American Indians find the term Cleveland Indians offensive, or Atlanta Braves offensive, or Kansas City Chiefs offensive? Here, you have it pulled up, Cerruti. This is from the Washington Post. New poll finds 9 in 10 Native Americans aren't offended by Redskins name. 9 in 10. 90% are not offended. And I've gone into the methodology of this report. Of course, when you have something like this, everyone's going to question how you got to these numbers. It's a poll of 500 people, which is a huge sample size, by the way, very representative sample size. It's not a small sample size when doing one of these kind of polls. But it doesn't matter, because the question still remains. How many people, what percentage of people get to define what is offensive and therefore society should change or accommodate for? Because if something's not intended to be offensive, then you ask, then why is it received offensively? I understand Chief Wahoo. I do. It was a caricature. It wasn't, in my estimation, integral to the history of the Cleveland Indians and the future of the Cleveland Indians. It was clearly intended to be a goofy caricature, but not all of these things are. The Cleveland Indians is not, in my estimation, intended to be offensive, nor received by the majority as offensive. Same with Braves, and for that matter, Washington Redskins. Matt in Cleveland. What's up, Matt?
Will, how you doing?
I'm good. What's up?
I think if the Redskins is more offensive, you got the Chiefs is more offensive. There's other teams and logos that are more offensive than the Indians.
Well, just out of curiosity, why do you find the Chiefs more offensive than the Indians?
Well, because with Chief Wahoo, if Chief Wahoo is offensive, then the Kansas City Chiefs is offensive as well.
Hold on, Matt. I mean, you just heard my whole spiel, right? You heard what I think about when we should deem something offensive. But I mean, I'm going to be intellectually honest about this. The Chief part wasn't what was perceived as the offensive part of Chief Wahoo. It wasn't that he was a chief of a tribe. It was that he was in this sort of goofy caricature, cartoonish look. You understand that?
Yes, correct.
All right. So what is your point? All these things, if Chief Wahoo goes, all this stuff has to go?
No, I just think if Rob Manfred's going to put his foot down on the commissioner, then he should sit there and look at all logos in professional baseball and professional sports and get rid of that as well.
All right. Thanks for the call, Matt. And by the way, that's happened. I didn't intend to go on this. I want to talk about, speaking of being offended, I want to talk about Tom Brady. He's offended today, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. But, yeah, I mean, look, the North Dakota Fighting Sioux are no longer that. They're the North Dakota Fighting Hawks. But, you know, I don't know. It's, again, what the response to me from someone who disagrees with me would be, well, you don't get to define what's offensive. I've had this debate enough to know what the response is. You don't get to define, white man, what is offensive. And that's fine. I don't. But I also think it's worthy of asking who does and how much and what percentage, because those things sort of become important unless we're living by this absurd notion that one offended person dictates the future of how we communicate, what we use. Scott in Ohio. What's up, Scott?
Hey, Will. How you doing?
I'm good. What's up, man?
And I'm 60 years old. the Indians, the Redskins, the Chiefs, the Braves, they've all been around since, before me and during my whole lifetime. But what I find more offensive is the stuff that's went on at Penn State, Baylor, Michigan State. To me, that is more offensive to the American public and especially to women in this day and age with what's going on there than it is to remove all these teams and names that have been there forever.
I hear you, Scott. I hear you. But here's the thing. I don't want to get into the offended Olympics. Who gets to be more offended, that if one person has something more offensive on their platter, we don't need to pay attention to something else. I just think, society loves being offended because right now it's a source of power. And it doesn't mean there aren't legitimate reasons to be offended. There are. But I think it's worth asking, and it's important to answer, when is it righteous? I've heard this said in the last week or so. You don't get to tell me when I should be offended. Yeah, but if I'm going to adjust my behavior, I need to know why and what is offensive, and we need to come to some kind of agreement about when we've reached the threshold of offensiveness. I don't know. Let's talk about Tom Brady. Speaking of offended people, can we talk about Tom Brady? He's offended, right, Cerruti?
He is, rightfully so.
At me?
Well, I don't know about you. I mean, you picked the Patriots.
I mean, if he's offended at me, then the whole world's gone crazy because no one has pumped up Tom Brady more than me, right?
You're you're Alex Guerrero. You totally buy into TB12. You want to get on that diet.
Tony Romo's texting me with jealousy about the way I talk about Tom Brady.
Yeah, you almost blindly follow Brady, which is a little bit scary.
Yeah. The Will Cain Show is reminding you that you can watch all 3 hours of the show on ESPN News. All right, so are we going to get Damien Woody? Is he coming in? All right, Damien Woody's going to come in. We're going to talk about some of these Patriots things. Because, again, I want to play this audio for you. You got to listen to this. Tom Brady is offended about something that happened on the air, and he took up his issue live on the air. That audio straight ahead. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. For me, Golden and Wingo, they get NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. On the Will Cain Show, I get former New England Patriot, New York Jet, Detroit Lion, Damien Woody on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. What's up, Woody?
Wait a minute. Was that? That should be a compliment, Will. I mean, the fact that you get me, a man of the people, that should be a big compliment.
Okay, I want to make 2 points. I didn't say I was disappointed. You read into that what you just heard. I just said they get him, I get you, and you said that should be a compliment. I agree.
Yeah, I kind of listened to your voice inflection and the context and the way that you use this, and I inferred that. Wait a minute, you think Roger Goodell is like a better interview than me?
Well, as long as we're clearing air and doing this live on the air and just letting everybody at home know this, you just want to let everybody know where you are right now because you're supposed to be sitting right here next to me.
Whoa! Wait a minute now. Aren't we doing the interview right now? Aren't we doing the interview?
Are you on the phone or are you here with me? You left, didn't you? You left.
Am I fulfilling my obligation?
Oh, that's what I am? I'm an obligation? Okay, I see it. All right, I got 2 things I want to talk to you about. 2 things I'm excited to talk to you about, okay? Because you're going to keep it real. That's who you are. That's our relationship. First, all right, I asked this question a little bit earlier in my show. You've played for the man. You've played for Bill Belichick. Do you think Bill Belichick would leave the Patriots in good shape if he decided, I'm done here? And what I mean by that is, will he leave it with its infrastructure, with its leadership? Could you imagine him walking away in a year when both the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator had left for other jobs? Can you imagine that?
I don't see that. I don't see that happening. I really don't. I see the opposite. If anything, I would see, Bill wanting to show people I can be, I can be just as successful as with life after Brady. Because we always get that question, who do you give more credit, to in this dynasty, Tom or Bill? And I just keep telling people, Bill. As great as Tom is, he's the best quarterback, in my opinion, that's ever played the game. Bill developed the man, so of course you got to give that props. But to answer your question, I don't see Bill ever leaving that organization in shambles. It wouldn't do it. It would only hurt his legacy, not help it.
Okay, so you're right, by the way, to bolster and I'm not taking sides on Brady versus Belichick. I'm probably on the Brady side, by the way. But to bolster your argument, let's look at this. Charlie Weiss, Romeo Crennel, Eric Mangini, Josh McDaniels twice, Bill O'Brien, Matt Patricia. He's changed coordinators on both sides of the ball numerous times and still won. continued to win. So if you're making the argument for Belichick and how much he leans on coordinators, it'd be not very much and doesn't matter who it is. Now, I don't mean to take something away from those guys. But.
Well, it's the same thing with Nick Saban in college football. How many times have we seen coordinators leave Nick Saban to go on to other head coaching jobs, and he schooled them, and the train keeps running with Alabama. Now, granted, that a lot of that has to do with recruiting, but still, they're both similar type programs.
Right. All right. So here now I'm going to transition because I want to make sure we get the time in on this. So I got to set this up. I don't know if you saw it. Raja Bell, who played for a ton of organizations, the Suns, the Cavaliers, the 76ers, has a podcast with Danny Cannell. It's called Off the Bench. And I'm going to play this audio a little bit later in the show for my audience, so stick around to hear this. But Raja said this. He said, there is a cultural divide in the locker room in Cleveland. And essentially, it's a white-black divide. It's a racial divide. That when he was in Philadelphia, Raja said, Matt Harpering was the odd man out. It was a culture that Allen Iverson created. Everyone was around, was like Iverson, into what Iverson was into, and Matt Harpering was the one little soul white guy who didn't fit in. And Raj was like, I felt bad for Matt. He said he saw the same thing in Cleveland when it came to Kevin Love, that Kevin Love was the odd man out, that, and Raj, make no mistake about it, Raj's implication is it's because there was a racial divide. You've been in a lot of locker rooms. Is this a thing, Damien? Is it a thing where there's these two cultures, they have a hard time mingling, and if you were in a situation like Kevin where you're the one man, the odd man out, it would be a problem?
No, because football is just it's a different animal than basketball. Basketball is more of a player oriented sport. Football is it's the ultimate team sport. You got guys coming from all backgrounds. You got guys who come from the inner city. You got guys who come from the suburbs. You got guys who come from, wealthy backgrounds. You got guys basically from all different backgrounds that are blending together and working towards one singular goal. Not to say that basketball players aren't working towards one single goal, but I will say this in regards to basketball. One player can dominate a sport, can dominate a team. That's not really the case in football. You're only as good as the guy that you're playing next to, and trust is a huge factor. So I think a lot of chemistry and team building is a bigger thing in football as opposed to basketball.
Well, how did that work, Damien? In the locker rooms you were a part of, was it integrated? And what I mean by that is it doesn't matter what you do on the football field, right? It's about what you do off the field. Do you hang out? Do you create relationships? Does that happen in football?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, listen, when I was in New England, this was pretty much it. New England and with the Jets, man, we would hang out. We would hang out, at each other's houses. Our families would hang out together. We would do a lot of things together, but because before you can make that critical play on the field, that, in a 2-minute drill, 1 minute left to go, that big third down, you got to build that chemistry and trust in the off season. Mm-hmm. That's where everything starts. And in football, that's how it is, man. You got guys from all over the place that's playing together for one cause. Right. Not everybody's best friends in a locker room, but everyone has respect for each other, and everyone's willing to bust their tail
run, man.
For that one thing.
I got a heart out. Sorry, Damien, but I was glad to have you.
All right, man.
I'm playing this Tom Brady audio next. I promise. Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio.
Thank you for listening to the Will Cain Podcast. You can listen to the Will Cain Show live weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. The Will Cain Podcast. This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
Here are the names that belong beside Tom Brady. Here's the debate that Tom Brady truly should be involved in. Names like this: Michael Jordan. And as of yesterday, Roger Federer. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. The show is presented by Progressive Insurance. I had this conversation on the Will Cain Show last week. I also had it on First Take. Tom Brady versus LeBron James. Who's the more dominant athlete of their time? Who has the better story of their time? Charles Barkley said that LeBron James is the greatest sports story in history. I beg to differ. I find the Tom Brady story more compelling. But when we relegated take it away from story. Just say who's the most dominant sportsman? Because words like athlete are too loaded. Athlete starts talking about like what your skills are, your ability to translate your sport, go from one sport to the other. Basketball players almost always are going to win that. It's easier to imagine a basketball player dominating on the soccer field and dominating on a football field than it is a tennis player dominating on a football field. But so let's make it sportsman. Seriously, these are the names that Tom Brady belongs in a debate in. And the truth of the matter is, I think he wins. When it comes to Tom Brady versus Michael Jordan, I believe it's Brady. Brady's 5-2 in Super Bowls. Jordan is 6-0 in NBA Finals. If Brady were to go on and win this Super Bowl, 6-2, that's the same number of wins with 2 more appearances. You can't be penalized for the 2 losses when your wins are at an equal number. All-Star games, 14 to Jordan, 13 to Brady. Scoring titles goes Michael's way over Tom Brady. All-Pro teams goes Michael's way big over Tom Brady. But the longevity of Tom Brady's career, doing it at the age of 40, as good as he did it at the age of 27, coming from nowhere, dominating his sport in a way that I don't know. It's hard to find comparables of people that have dominated. That's why we're having this debate with these kind of names. But the point I'm getting to is also Roger Federer joins this kind of debate as of yesterday. Roger Federer won his 20th major title. He won the Australian Open at the age of 36. He's only the 4th male or female player in tennis history to win at least 20 majors. And it's worth noting that Serena Williams, still active on the women's side, is one of those others with Margaret Court and Steffi Graf. But Roger Federer, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady. These are the greats of a generation. These are the greats of decades. When it comes to Roger Federer and Tom Brady, these are guys doing it over Tom Brady. It's approaching 20 years in his professional career. Roger Federer, pro what, 17, 18? It's just remarkable that you can win at this level against this kind of competition for this length of time. Because with Roger Federer, it's beating guys like Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal, 2 other titans of that sport. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about what does it take to be offended? Who gets to define being offended? Whose offense gets to dictate the behavior of others? Chief Wahoo has been retired by the Cleveland Indians, and some are saying that's just a starting point. We need to move on and retire the name Indians, the name Braves for the Atlanta Braves, the Chiefs in Kansas City, and obviously the Redskins in Washington. But I ask then, who gets to be offended? Well, I'll tell you who's offended. Tom Brady's offended. Tom Brady is offended because a radio host on WEEI, local station in Boston, saw the first episode of Tom vs. Time. It's a Facebook documentary that Tom Brady's putting on that shows how he is adapting his body over time, his performance over time, what he's doing. But it's a little bit of a reality show. You get to see Tom's family. You get to see Tom's kid. Now, Cerruti, when I play this audio, does this give you the part of what the host says about Tom Brady's kid?
It doesn't.
All right. So I have to say that.
Yes.
You're going to, do I disguise my voice in the future so you know it's not, you don't know it's me saying it? This is, I really wish we had
we can
audio.
put a filter on it.
All right. So I believe it was last Friday, a guy named Alex Reimer on WEEI in Boston was asked what he thought about Tom Brady documentary. And he said, it was so staged in the beginning. The first scene, Tom in his kitchen with his kids, and he says Tom's 5-year-old daughter is acting like a little. Oh, Did you catch that? Calls a 5-year-old girl, it's not flattering. Okay, it's not cool. And Tom has a weekly, regular, scheduled hit on WEEI on Monday. You can
say it, by the way.
I don't want to say it, Cerruti.
I'm just saying you can say it. I don't know, I don't want people thinking, we're being, muzzled by the FCC. You could say it.
All right, pissant. He called her a pissant.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel better.
I feel better, too, that I didn't have to say it in context so that now it sounds like in one sentence, Will Cain says Tom Brady's daughter is I'm not saying that. I'm quoting somebody else. So there you go. There's the word pissant. We can say that.
Everyone, now we know. Okay,
all
good.
Right, has everybody got it? The word was pissant. Okay? You want me to say it again? I didn't know that was cool. The FCC is cool with that. I'm going to go around saying that all the time. That's going to be my new word for everybody that I don't like in sports. Starting with you, Spencer. You pissant. That's, by the way, with that word, I've heard that word since I was a kid. Like, that's a word that my mom would use when she was upset. I don't even know what it means.
I was going to say, I hadn't heard that word used in like a decade.
What does it even mean?
Hold on.
What is a pissant? It's an irritant in general, I think. You look that up, sir. You get on right there. In the meantime, here's what Tom said on his hit with WEEI this morning.
Yeah, I do want to say something. I mean, I don't want to get into the documentary much, but I did, Stacey had told me that someone had made a comment about my daughter or something like that.
Yeah, Tom, we were just talking about it was Alex Reamer, and Jerry and I talked about it Friday. It was a stupid thing to say. We destroyed him for saying it. You can say whatever you like. Go ahead.
Well, I think that I've tried to come on this show for many years and showed you guys a lot of respect. I've always tried to come on and, do a good job for you guys. So, it's very disappointing when you hear that, certainly with my daughter or any child, they certainly don't deserve that. So.
Oh, no, Tom, no question.
Yeah,
as I said, Jerry and I talked about it on Friday. Stupid thing to say. He was suspended for it. He should be. There are certain things I think you understand. As a professional athlete, you're going to be criticized for what you do or on or off the field as an individual. But for a kid to be criticized is unbelievably stupid. There's no defense for it.
Yeah. So I'll obviously evaluate whether I want to come on this show again. So I really don't have much to say this morning.
That's fine. I understand. That's totally fine.
I will. Maybe I'll speak with you guys some other time.
Absolutely fine. We understand. All right, Tom. Thanks. You too.
That's Tom Brady on Kirk and Callahan on WEEI. So he's mad. He's mad. And you know what? He has a right to be. Here's the two sides of this coin. Tom Brady did create a documentary that is in essence a reality show. And in that reality show, he shows much of his family. It's the same choice. Well, same is going to be so loaded. It's a similar choice that other celebrities have made, and it opens their family up to criticism. Honestly, it's what LeVar Ball has done. It's what the Kardashians have done. And I don't think Tom Brady is doing it in any similar fashion to any of those people. He's not using his children to further his own fame. He's giving a window into his own life. But Tom has to know that's going to come. I have to debate this all the time, to be honest with you. How much do I talk about my kids? What do I say or show of my kids on Instagram or Facebook? Because I've got to know as I walk into that world, there's going to be those of you out there who, don't like me and don't see any boundaries. But on the flip side of the equation, there's the human side. And let's just say calling 5-year-olds pissants is pretty well over the line of being human. I mean, I don't think this guy should be fired. I don't think he should be suspended, really, honestly. But he deserves a heap of criticism. What? Oh, Okay, tell me what it is.
You want the definition?
No. I want it right after these messages. Right. Okay. I want to know what a pissant is when we come back. But here's the deal. Tom has a right to be mad. Tom shouldn't suspend his relationship with WEEI over this. He shouldn't walk away from his commitments. And this guy shouldn't pay the ultimate price, his job, for it. But this guy should receive a ton of criticism because, come on, man, in the end, kids are off limits. They are, even when you put them out there. Was that the easy take guy thing? Did I just do easy take?
Kind of
did.
Yeah, but there's really no other way.
If you do it with my kids, I'm going to be mad. Let's just put it that way. You do it with my kids, I'm going to be mad. Even if I'm the one that put them out there. 100flowers.com has the Valentine's gifts you'll love. Right now, you can get 12 multicolored roses for only $19.99. Or double up to 24 multicolored roses for only $10 more. To order, go to 100flowers.com/ESPN. All right, so straight ahead, Cerruti wants to go on the record of defining some really, upsetting words to a lot of people. So Cerruti's going to be here for us on that. You have a list or just this one, Cerruti?
Just this one.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Just want to educate the people.
All right. Also, why Twitter's a fraud. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Mike Golick here. ADT, the +1 security company, can now help keep you safe at home and when you're on the go. Get started with the ADT Starter Kit professionally installed for only $49. Plus, you'll get ADT Go, the new family mobile safety app and service with 24/7 emergency response for free with any ADT security system. Go to ADT.com/podcast to learn more today.
Requires 36-month monitoring contract, QSP and Easy Pay. Activation and early termination fees may apply. Certain markets excluded. Licenses available at ADT.com. Additional charge for ADT Go premium services after March 31st, 2018.
Told during the commercial breaks that my career will not survive a pissant gate or something of similar ilk. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. I did just get a visit and say I'm out of my mind, by the way. This jeopardizes advertising. It jeopardizes his relationship with Tom Brady. It jeopardizes all the things WEI signs up for when they sign up for the Tom Brady show. But here's my thing. Is he being sensitive? He is. He has a right to be sensitive. And I heard Stugotz talking about this morning. Stugotz was right. That's like everybody's eyes bolt up. Stugotz was right. Like it's in Tom Brady's hands. He should be upset. You shouldn't call some 5-year-old a pissant. But also, it's in Tom Brady's hands to go nuclear on this guy. And by nuclear, it means I'm done with WEI. I'm done with this interview.
Yeah, Tom Brady controls the future of this guy's employment.
Yeah. Right. For an offensive comment. I don't know, man. Once again, I mean, I think Tom's right to be offensive, but it's like the cardinal sin anymore. Thou shalt never be offended. And if one is, burn it all down. Everyone must pay. Jobs, language, everything. I am offended. Do you have a definition of pissant for me?
Yeah, I do. It is an insignificant or contemptible person or thing, worthless. I didn't think it was as bad until I read the definition. It's bad. I guess I never knew the definition of it.
Yeah, but that fits a lot. Not you think? Will you read it one more time? Because I was thinking about a few names.
An insignificant or contemptible person or thing, worthless.
Oh, yeah.
It's way worse.
Let me just start. I'm going to make a list. All of them, management, all of them would be over the age of 7. What's the cutoff also, by the way? Is it any child? Is it a child of a certain age?
It's your child. Whenever it's your child, it's not okay.
That's it. You just nailed it. If you have the power to be offended and execute upon that, it doesn't matter. I have a 32-year-old child. I'm super famous. I'm offended. You're toast. Hey, by the way, we have a perfect example of that. We have an example of a sports father with adult children that's super offended right now at something ESPN did. And what's he doing? He's cutting them off. LeVar Ball is cutting off Jeff Goodman and Ramona Shelburne. I don't know if it will pay the ultimate price for Jeff and Ramona the same way that Tom Brady will have on Alex's career up in Boston, but LeVar Ball is going to try. This is LeVar Ball. Is this live from, it's not live. Is this from Lithuania?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. We got the international transatlantic telephone operation up. LeVar Ball speaking on Jeff Goodman. Listen.
Jeff Goodman, I sent him home early.
You sent him home early? Why'd you send him home early?
So I said, you got to go. I sent him home early. Otherwise, he would still been out here. But how you going to be out here if I won't interview with you no more? You got to come home. Bye-bye.
Well, why won't you interview with Jeff anymore? I thought Jeff was your guy.
I sent him home early. He ain't my guy no more. I'll never, ever, ever do an interview with that guy again. He's shifty. And I see that. So he want to go that route, like I told him. You can do what you want, say what you want. You just got to suffer the consequences, whether they be good or bad.
Well,
for that little story he wanted to write, try to finagle things. Guess what? He out the picture now. He can't come close to my family.
That's LeVar Ball on Mornings with George, LZ, and Keyshawn out in L.A. By the way, great job by George Sedano following up there. That's harder than you think. Listening, paying attention, pinning someone down, clarifying. What are you talking about? What did he do to upset you? LeVar Ball, through that, George is able to elicit, is mad that Jeff Goodman reported on LeVar Ball saying that the Lakers don't want to play for Luke Walton. So LeVar Ball is mad that you're repeating his words. LeVar Ball is mad. By the way, is LeVar Ball ever off the record? We should get Jeff on the phone. We should get Jeff. LeVar Ball said he sent Jeff home from Lithuania. Yeah, right.
We also got an update that Jeff was scheduled to be there for 8 days. He was there for like 8 days, and then he went home as scheduled. He didn't leave because LeVar stopped giving him access.
By the way, what's Ramona have to do with any of this? Why is he cutting off Ramona? What'd she do?
But things are getting too quiet in Lithuania, so he had to make it a little loud so get himself back in the news.
Didn't it feel like that? Like it had been a couple weeks. LeVar Ball wasn't in the news. We hadn't been talking about LeVar Ball.
All of a sudden, he's coaching his son's team now.
And he's mad at ESPN.
Exactly.
LeVar Ball, poof, back in the news by cutting off Jeff Goodman and Ramona Shelburne.
101. That's what it is. And it's actually brilliant because we fall for it every time, but that's what it is.
We'll see if his power play has the same effect of Tom Brady's. Straight ahead, we're going to be talking to Ryan Hollins and Antoine Walker. I'm fascinated by the story coming out of Cleveland. The tension between Isaiah Thomas and the Cleveland Cavaliers, the tension between Kevin Love and the Cleveland Cavaliers, and let's not use euphemisms, the tension between Kevin Love and LeBron James, because the Cleveland Cavaliers are LeBron James. Raja Bell, who has a podcast with Danny Kanell called Off the Bench, went into this. He talked about what it is that's dividing that Cavs locker room, what it is that's making Kevin Love the target of so much of their blame. Why is Kevin Love always the scapegoat? Why is Kevin Love always the one on the outs? And Raja Bell has a theory. Listen to this.
I'm going to keep it absolutely 100 on our podcast this morning. When I was in Cleveland, Kevin Love was as much of an outcast as you could be on a team. It's the dynamic of being in a locker room that's just like culturally a lot different than you. Mm-hmm. And I say that, and I think everybody understands, like black and white kind of deal. I lived that. I was in a locker room with Matt Harpring in Philadelphia. Matt Harpring was miserable. And he just was, like, culturally, like, this was like when AI was rocking like big gold chains and super baggy, like Reebok, sweatsuits, and everybody had a do-rag on and Averex jackets. And like, we were a hip hop squad. And there sat Matt Harpring, like with his, and Matt was my guy and still is to this day. Right. And I would feel awful. I would look across the locker room and be like, Jesus, he's just so out of place. Like, he can't figure out, even if he wanted to be involved, which I'm sure he did, he couldn't like figure out culturally what they had in common, and it just didn't work. And there was an element of that when I was in Cleveland. Now they figured it out, they put it to bed. LeBron went to LA, had these conversations with Kevin Love. But dude, it was so bad that first year that I was on a phone call with Dan Gilbert and our whole brass, and we had a big deal on the table to move Kevin Love in the first year, and I was like, move him. Not because I didn't think he was a good player, but because I just couldn't see them figuring out how to work like as people together.
That's Raja Bell on the Off the Bench podcast with Danny Kanell saying the problem in Cleveland is a cultural divide. It's a white-black thing. Kevin Love versus the rest of that locker room is as simple as a cultural divide along racial lines. We'll ask Ryan Hollins about that. I want to get him in here. I want to ask a few players if this is a real thing in the NBA. We just talked to Damien Woody. It's not in the NFL. So is this a thing in the NBA, or is this honestly a LeBron James thing? It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. So much blaming and finger-pointing going on in Cleveland. I want to walk in there and just give a few guys a hug. Kevin Love needs a Goodwill Hunting hug. It's not your fault, Kevin. It's not your fault. Isaiah Thomas needs a Goodwill Hunting hug. It's not your fault, Isaiah. It's not. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. The funny thing is, these two guys are also at odds with each other. Kevin Love and Isaiah Thomas are the ones who reportedly had the blow-up in the locker room this past weekend, where Isaiah Thomas called Kevin Love out for supposedly faking an injury. Isaiah Thomas, it did not happen. Did not happen. Listen.
Well, you called him out on Monday.
What did I call him out for?
For missing practice and missing the game with the headaches. And
to be real, I didn't call him out. I asked him, why wasn't he at the game, during the game, supporting his teammate? Mm-hmm. And then after the game, I asked him I didn't ask him because he wasn't there, so I was seeing where he was.
Okay.
So I didn't call him out any. So those reports, whoever's saying that, there's no bad blood between me and Kevin Love. I approached him about a situation, and he went out of the house like it shouldn't have been, but it was nothing bigger than what the world was trying to make it, like some type of beef between me and him. Mm-hmm. It's never been that, and I've never been that guy to do that. So to clear all that false whatever everybody's writing up, that's not cool at all.
That's a little hard to believe. It's a little hard to believe, Isaiah, right there, that he wasn't calling Kevin Love out. The Cavaliers are turning on each other. They won yesterday. They beat the Detroit Pistons, and Isaiah Thomas sat in the fourth quarter. He scored, 17 points, 10 of them in the third quarter, and didn't play a minute in the fourth quarter. And that's led to more and more questions. What's Isaiah Thomas's future in Cleveland? If he and LeBron can't play together, how are they ever going to advance? What's going to happen with Isaiah before the trade deadline on February 7th? And all I would say is this. The Cleveland Cavaliers' issues clearly predated Isaiah Thomas. It's odd that all the fingers now are pointed at either Isaiah Thomas or Kevin Love. And those two guys now are pointing back and forth at each other, or at least one way, Isaiah Thomas pointing at Kevin Love, to try to deflect blame. But think about the things that the Cleveland Cavaliers suffered from all season long. bad defense. Defense towards the bottom of the NBA. Worst defense in the NBA along with the Sacramento Kings. That was the case before Isaiah Thomas came along. Now, it hasn't been good with Isaiah, but it's not, he's not the problem. He may not be the answer, but he's not the problem either. There are those pointing out his shot selection's a problem, that Isaiah is ball dominant. Last year with the Celtics, he had one of the highest usage rates in the NBA. I believe 34% of the time. Isaiah was doing something with the ball. But you know who else was really high in usage? Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving was 9th in usage last year. Isaiah Thomas was 5th. Kyrie Irving's shot selection at times could be questioned. So all of the issues that the Cleveland Cavaliers are suffering from were there before Isaiah came along. He may not be their problem. He may not be their answer, but he's not their question either. And if they're going to go anywhere this year, if the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to go anywhere, they have to have Isaiah Thomas in the fold. And he has to be able to be who he is. He has to be able to score like he did in Boston. He can't become somebody he's not. He can't be an off-the-ball, stand in the corner, jack up a three or mid-range guy because LeBron has the ball in his hands. And Isaiah's saying as much. These issues aren't my issues. Listen.
The problems we have now are the problems we had in November on that 19 out of 20 wins. Like we've been the lowest 5 defensive team in the NBA the whole time. So when I come back, why is it's my fault now? Like that's which life isn't fair, but that's not fair, bro, at all. And I just laugh at those things because I know in this circle, in this team, everybody believes in each other, and everybody's in here for it to work and for us to be playing in June, and that's the ultimate goal.
It's not your fault, Isaiah. It's not your fault. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch to Progressive can save an average of $620. There was this article this weekend in the New York Times. It was fascinating. Here's a debate that we have had internally. So Rudy and I have talked about this, talked about it with Nuno. Here's the question. Should I buy Twitter followers? Right now, I have roughly about 70,000 Twitter followers. And the reason I ask you that, the reason I've asked Rudy that, is because we know, you and I both know, management sits there and looks at how many Twitter followers different talent, personalities have, and goes, oh, look at the voice, look at his voice, look at his following, look what he's saying, she's saying. And it can impact hiring decisions. It can put zeros on your contract. It can give you opportunities. But it's all BS. It's all nonsense.
But you fought the good fight so far.
Meaning what?
You don't have any fake Twitter followers.
I can't say that. I don't know. I have not
you
bought
haven't
any.
bought any Twitter followers. That's right. Everybody probably has fake Twitter followers.
Right. Apparently, they're incredibly cheap to buy. About a penny or less per follower. And the New York Times did this massive study on celebrities that have bought Twitter followers to increase their profile, to increase the look of their influence. Do you remember some of the names, Rudy? It was
people that have bought followers.
John Leguizamo,
Ray
the
Lewis.
actor. Ray Lewis, that's right. Commentator for NFL Network.
I don't want to start calling people out in the walls here, but I'm sure that there are. I know for a fact that there are people that have fake Twitter. You look at their number and their follower count, you're like, there's no way that many people follow you. With all due respect, like I like you as a person, but there's no way that's possible.
How is that not fraud? And what I mean by that is this: if somebody pays you, and a lot of these Twitter accounts get paid for promotional tweets, for influence. If somebody pays you, let's call it $20,000 to tweet something out. But in the meantime, you have bought all of these followers, which are fake, by the way. They're all, not all, but no. They're all fake, right? If you buy them, you're buying fake people.
Yeah, the New York Times report basically said they copied like real people's profiles and just made different ones with their picture, with like their bio. So they look, some of them, they're not just eggs. They look kind of like real people, but they're not.
So somebody's paying you for a certain amount of people you influence, and you are in turn buying fake people to pump up your numbers and look more influential than you are. How is that not fraud?
And it works.
Man, that's the thing. Let me tell you something. Jason Whitlock tweeted this last Friday. Jason Whitlock over at FS1, and I thought it was really good. Twitter is going to go down as the worst television producer in history. Twitter is a vanity project within the media, where a bunch of media people sit around and talk to each other and try to appear influential to each other. And I can tell you, I've seen TV shows produced with content that they gather from Twitter. Memes on Twitter are thought to be conversation pieces or debate pieces. They're not. This is what you do when you see a meme. You go, huh.
Yeah, it's literally like me on my couch being like, that's kind of funny. Let me send it to 3 of my friends. I don't want to see it again on a TV show.
And then you make this vacant sound, this vacant smile. Huh. And somebody goes, that'd be a great TV show. We should play a bunch of those things so people can go, huh, for 30 minutes. Twitter's the worst.
But you're missing the point, too. They've already seen the meme, and then you're going to put it on TV for the second time for them to see it. So you actually have to go through a second medium to see it again.
So you go, huh.
Interesting.
I saw that.
It's kind of funny. Chuckle.
Twitter is going to get more television shows canceled, produce more crappy content, and along the way defraud people. But first it will get you some big jobs. Then it'll defraud them. Twitter is not representative of anything. The only reason I do it, well, I'm going to be honest, I feel pressure to like, oh, you got this many. I actually like the interaction with the listeners. I told you guys when I launched the Will Cain Show, I want to interact. And as this show grows, and by the way, we are growing. We're going to be talking about that. We are growing. Market by market, audience by audience.
The Will issue.
I'm here to tell you. I'm not bragging, I'm just saying. We are growing. But next on my step is more interaction. More one-to-one. 888-729-3776. More calls, more Facebook, more Twitter, just for the interaction. But if you're fake, well, stick around because it might help my profile. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio.
Will Cain. The Will Cain Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests appear on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. More from the Will Cain Show coming up.
What's the fastest we've seen an athlete crash and burn? What's the fastest we've seen somebody go from top of their game to absolutely destroyed? Because I would have to submit to you that Ronda Rousey is at the top of that list. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Don't miss tomorrow. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, he's on with Golick and Wingo, 8 o'clock Eastern tomorrow morning. You shouldn't want to miss that. That should be good. Listen, one of the things I'm most fascinated with in life, honestly, is failure. I love failure. Failure is the great divider in life. Everybody falls down. The only difference is who gets up. That's it. All right? No one walks through this life unscathed. If you are, you're just lucky. You're not good. You're not great. You're just lucky. Or you're a coward who didn't risk enough. Because if you are out there trying, putting it all on the line, pushing yourself far enough, you're going to fall on your face sooner or later. And then comes the real divider in life. Then comes the real test. Resilience. Do you get up? If I can give my kids one thing in life, one lesson, one quality, it is resilience. Get up. Get up again and again and again. Success is simply defined as getting up one more time than you fell down. That's it. Ronda Rousey fell and fell hard. She dominated the UFC. She dominated women's fighting. She carried that sport for years when it needed a personality. Before Conor McGregor, that sport needed a name. It needed a star, and that star was Ronda Rousey. She destroyed every challenger that came up. Now, we can debate, and we should, in retrospect, talk about the quality of those opponents. How good were they? Because once Ronda Rousey went down, first against Holly Holmes, it was remarkable the toll it took on her. Not physically, although she did take a toll physically in that fight, but psychologically. She never really rebounded. She came back for one more fight against Amanda Nunes, but that one fight destroyed more than her UFC career. It clearly destroyed Ronda's self-image, who she either believed she was or pretended she was. Her invincibility. It didn't come back. And maybe when it's that drastic, you ask yourself, was it ever really there? Now, I sit there and I go, what other athletes can we think of that have gone on and had similar falls from dominance? I mean, it's hard to come up with someone who was so high and then that quickly so low. just by virtue of losing in their sport. I'm not talking about, something happening in their lives, off the court, off the field, drug abuse. I'm not talking about things like that so often takes people down, but rather just taking the L. The reason I'm talking about this is Ronda Rousey is now in the WWE. She made her debut last night, right? In the Royal Rumble. And she's now your newest WWE star. This is Ronda Rousey talking to Ramona Shelburne. Ramona's got in with Ronda now still. She's been cut off from LeVar. We need to check in with Ramona, see if she's okay. LeVar Ball has cut Ramona Shelburne off, but she's still talking to Ronda Rousey. This is what Rousey said.
This is not just, this is not a smash and grab. This is not a publicity stunt. When I first met with Triple H, I told him that, there are other things that I could do with my time that will make way more money, but I won't enjoy nearly as much. I think that the only thing that money gets you is the freedom to choose how you spend your time and who you spend your time with. And I don't want to just be constantly stuck in that trying to make money for the sake of making money. So I just wanted to be able to be part of this company and actually really get the most out of my life and my opportunities. And I don't think that trying to make as much money as possible every single day is the best thing for my happiness. And I want to wrestle, and I want to be part of this company, and I want the fans to respect me.
ESPN's Arash Makazi tweeted this. The 3 UFC fighters who have headlined a pay-per-view event and led to 1 million buys, there's been 3 of them that have done that. Been the headliner on a million person buy. 2 of them are in WWE. Ronda Rousey, Brock Lesnar. The only one that's not yet in WWE, Conor McGregor. And you want to bet against Vince McMahon in the XFL? I wish you luck, my friends. I wish you luck. But, what names are we talking about here? Mike Tyson?
Tyson was one that we were thinking of after he bit Holyfield's ear, kind of fell off a cliff.
No, it's before that. It's after he lost to Buster Douglas, right? He loses to Buster Douglas, and he's never the same guy after that. He fought for heavyweight titles. He was still famous, but he was never the dominant fighter that he was before that.
Another guy I had was Tim Lincecum. Was unhittable from 2008, 2009, won Cy Young back-to-back years, then had another couple good years of ERA. Then his ERA doubled year to year and was never the same again.
Just from getting shelled a couple times. Man, there's a moment in this interview with Ramona Shelburne, you should check it out, where Ronda Rousey is asked about fighting again and that kind of thing. In fact, here, she's asked, are you retired? Are you going to fight again?
That's what everybody else seems to say. I never retired from judo. So if that's what you guys want to think, all I know is that I really want to devote 100% of my time to wrestling right now, and whatever people want to call that, they can call it.
Yeah, but Ramona asks her, that's what I'm saying, you can watch this. Ramona asks her something about the mental toll it took on her after she lost to Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes, and she puts her head down. And she looks away from the camera and takes this long moment. You're asking, is she going to cry? It's clearly still weighing on her. That kind of, I don't know. You need resilience in life. You need resilience to be a champion because you don't only get W's in life. Garrett in Indiana, you're on the Will Cain Show. What's up, Garrett?
Hey, Will Cain, man. Will Cain, I just want to tell you, I feel like your bias against the Cleveland Cavaliers and one of the greatest players ever is your problem with the whole scenario. You give Tom Brady every break in the world, but it's time for you to put some respect on LeBron James' name. They're having similar issues to the Patriots. With the ownership, with the code.
Garrett, hold on. Hold on, Garrett. I want a piece of you. I got to go to break. I'm going to be dealing with you in just a moment. And you just put on hold. Put Garrett on hold. I'm going to get to Garrett and Antoine Walker because I want to talk to Antoine Walker about this divide supposedly between Kevin Love and the Cavs locker room, the supposed racial divide. So there we go. Antoine Walker and my destruction of Garrett on the Will Cain Show.
Thank you for listening to the Will Cain Podcast. You can listen to the Will Cain Show live weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. The Will Cain Podcast. The Will Cain Podcast.